To our pre-meeting, we're swearing in a new board member, Andrew Bushman, and I'll read what he's supposed to swear. I,
Andrew Bushman,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I'll bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies,
and defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
and
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of trustee
discharge the duties of trustee
of the Joseph City Unified School District Number 2
of the Joseph City Unified School District Number 2
to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Bushman. Thank you for taking our empty spot. We need to wait for a couple of minutes for Mr. Fields to get here to start, but we could call the meeting to order and stuff, right? Yes. And take roll, things like that.
You can.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, the time being 6:05. Do roll call. Myself. Oh, that's you, sorry.
Mr. Flake?
Here.
Mrs. Robertson? Present. Mr. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Flake?
Here.
Mr. Bushman?
Here.
Do we have any volunteers for the Pledge of Allegiance? The flag's back there.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to the invocation. Do you have any volunteers?
I'll say it.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity that we have of being here and of serving our community and especially serving the students of Joseph City Schools. We ask that thy Spirit might attend us and guide us and direct us in the things that we do. We thank thee for the freedoms that we have in this country, and we ask that you please bless this country. We might be able to retain our freedoms in the things that we do. We thank thee again for all that thou hast blessed us with, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So we do need to wait for him before we
That'd probably be a good idea.
start the rest of it.
will be just a few minutes out.
If you are okay with it, can I give a brief report of stuff going on at the high school, and then everybody doesn't have to sit here in silence? Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. I don't know how many people know it, but we're refinishing the high school gym floor right now. It's recommended to do that every 6 to 8 years. It's 17, so it's time to do it. So we're working on that. I'm excited to have that finished, which should be next week sometime. So if you get a chance to come up and look at it, it's kind of exciting to see. It's a new design and everything. It should be fun. Online learning has actually turned out okay so far. Obviously, there's some challenges, but the teachers have learned a lot of new skills. We use Google programs, Google Classroom, and other online technology that's been really valuable. So, although it's been a challenge, I think in the long run it'll be a valuable experience because teachers learn some new skills that will help them in their jobs. What else did I say? Our sports are starting up. Yesterday was the first official day for high school volleyball. Last week was the start of cross country, and then football starts on Monday. Well, it can start Monday. I think they're starting Tuesday officially. And junior high softball and football will be going Tuesday. Junior high softball's already started. Football starts Monday or Tuesday.
When did junior high softball start?
Well, technically, we're still doing open gyms right now.
Okay.
Open fields. It officially can
So they
start,
can't start yet?
Officially can start Tuesday or Monday. Nobody practices usually on a holiday, but they can officially start Monday.
Okay.
Games, do you know when the first games start? 24th. The 24th of September, first games for softball. All the other sports will start right about then, too. But in spite of not a whole lot of kids in there, it's been busy. We have the computer lab open, and we usually get 15 to 20 kids every day coming in to use the computer lab or to get help from our special ed department, so that's been busy. Other than that, it's going very well. I can't take up 10 minutes, but I can give you a couple.
Do you want to take some time, Danny?
Sure. Kind of the same at the elementary school. It's been good for the teachers to learn some of these technology things, even myself to learn these things and to do that. We were average. It's been steadily going up. Those that have been coming into our computer lab, we probably had about 15 or 16. We've had to actually start using the other lab as well too to try to keep people spread out a little bit. That's been good. We have a few special ed students that are coming in to get a little bit of one-on-one assistance, which works better for them. So we appreciate the staff doing that, and we're just continuing to get ready for school, in our rooms, doing the spacing that we've been requested to do and things like that. We're getting dots and things painted outside so everybody kind of know where to line up and different spacing and things like that. We appreciate the patience of the parents and the teachers. You know, today we had a major technology glitch, and that happens, but we just adjusted and rolled with it and making the best of it. So we do have students that are a few more that are opting to stay online, but at the same time we got students wanting to come from neighboring districts because they want to come to our school. So things are rolling pretty good. We have some teachers that have almost 100% attendance in their Google Meets classrooms when they do their live sessions, but most all of them are at least 70% above of the students watching it live.
That's good. Eric, the open gym and stuff you're talking about, it seems like there's some good activity in those things, and the kids, it's able to get them out to do something.
Yeah, kids and their parents, for the most part, are ready for kids to be busy. So we've actually, for a few weeks now, we have girls and boys basketball doing open gyms, volleyball was doing open gyms, cross country was doing some stuff, wrestling, football, and basketball, I know girls, they were averaging close to 20, is that right? And boys usually get close to 20 for basketball. Football's had 10, 15.
It seems like they were doing a conditioning thing too.
Yeah, so they're every other day they were doing it would be like an open field for football and then some weightlifting and some other conditioning stuff. So keeping them busy. The kids were excited to get out and run.
Do something.
And, do something. That's exactly right. But they've been very successful. Cross country is we have the biggest boys cross country group that we've had. I don't remember the exact number, but it's somewhere around 7 for the boys, and a couple of girls. They're doing great. They've been busy and running. I know you see them in the mornings. They do 2 practices a week in the morning running, and then in the evening do some conditioning and some
I've seen him running around town. At least I assume that's who it is.
If you've seen a group of teenagers running on their own, it's probably cross country. I don't think many do that anymore.
I didn't see anybody chase them.
Yeah, so they're all going really well, and we've got a lot of coaches excited to get going.
I think it's a good thing. I know the kids that live in my home have been itching to do something besides work. And this gives them something to do besides work.
When they're at home, they have to work. It sounds like our house too. So. Yeah, no, we've been very busy up there. A couple of things for you guys to know from the maintenance department. Brad, I don't think he's talked about this yet, but he painted underneath the field house bleachers over there, and saw a lot of. He covered up a lot of writing from before my time, so it looks really nice if you get a chance to see that. He did a great job, and they've been busy working on stuff all over the place.
That's good. It's exciting to see things get done.
Yeah, in spite of no students, there's been a lot going on. Another thing on the gym, the fencing. You guys remember the green fencing up on top of the mezzanine up there? That was starting to bend and kind of start scratching at people, so it was time to change that. So we've ordered new fencing. It's supposed to be installed this week. That's going to be black now instead of green, so that's exciting to get rid of the green and the blue and gold gym. So this week. So.
Yes.
For purpose of a discussion, Mr. Miller, about 2 weeks ago, I submitted some considerations. One being that there would be less exposure if you rotated teachers instead of rotating students in different classes. Is that going to be?
No, just very good question. Scheduling wise, that gets a little tricky because, for example, in a 9th grade student, when you take 2 9th grade students and compare their schedules, well, really only 4 of their classes are going to be the same in general, and then 3 are going to be electives. So it was just the setting up that schedule for that many kids. We would have to force all the 9th graders to take the same classes, and so that was going to be the problem that stopped it. So we did look into it. It's just scheduling and getting the kids on that schedule is going to be impossible.
I'm about to call the public. Is there anybody who wants to speak?
There's not a
One of the other considerations I put forth
If
was
they raise their hand, they can talk.
a lot of
If I
figures
call
people
on
if anything goes wrong.
them
And in order to prevent
for a special
those
meeting.
people making accusations, I thought it would be easier to put a person on the bus with the driver and take the temperature of the student prior to boarding the bus, because once they get on the bus, it's our problem. If we take the temperature and reject them, they aren't on the bus, then it's a parent problem.
So we are going to be taking temperatures before students get on the bus. As far as how that's going to go, I don't know. I think it might just be the bus driver that steps off ahead of time and does the.
In regards to that, once they leave the home, aren't we responsible for them? I know if they get in any trouble, you address it from the time they leave their home till they get back, am I correct?
There's some gray area there, but yes, in general.
And as a parent and grandparent, if I had a kid waiting to get on the bus and they got turned away, what if there was no one at home?
Well, and we will have to make sure parents are aware of that possibility, and hopefully they help us out and keep
By
them
taking
home.
the temperature before
Yeah,
they send them out
keep
the
them at
door?
home if they're feeling sick or along those lines.
That's going to be part of this. They're going to have to
Yeah.
not send their kid to school if they've got the sniffles. Just
Which will be a change for a lot of
yes.
people. Will be a big change.
We're at the
Okay,
action
yes.
item.
All right.
I need to present it, right? Are we ready?
Yeah,
for that?
absolutely.
Okay. I motion that we discuss and possibly approve the action of authorizing school to start in person on the 12th?
8th.
The 8th of September.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we've taken some measures to prepare to open school. If the board will approve this, it's my recommendation. Some of the things we've done, we've improved the air filters. We've upgraded the air filters. We've opened the dampers for exterior air. We have masks in place, hand sanitizer. So we've taken some precautions like that, and we feel like we'd like to go ahead and try and start classes again. So
Okay. The principals.
What's my opinion on that? We're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not understanding, is all the kids and all the teachers and all the employees gonna be wearing masks per se? Or can they wear face shields?
yeah, it's face coverings. Okay, that's our policy. So if shields would qualify, that would be
And
fine.
have we looked into buying face shields for the teachers? Because I know one of our concerns is the children not being able to see the teacher's face.
Yeah.
You know, and, I mean, I'm looking at ordering some for me, because I'm tired of not being able to breathe.
Yeah, we have some, yes, and we're ordering some more, and no teachers have specifically requested any. In a lot of the instructional settings, they probably won't have masks on if there's social distancing in place. So if the class is spaced out there and the teacher's in the front of the classroom, the teacher may not have any facial covering. So that's our plan for that. Actually, there's a summary in front of you here of kind of our approach to face coverings. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this, but it outlines what we're going to do. Basically, if social distancing can be maintained, we're not going to require masks. So, but areas like when students go to their lockers, they might need to put their mask on or their face shield. However, when they're back in class, the teacher may say, okay, we're gonna please take your mask off now. Or if they're going to go outside for class, that's another step we think that actually could be beneficial for our classes. We take them outside a little bit more and get the fresh air. We believe that could prevent the spread of the virus. Buses. That's an area where we think I think the close quarters probably requires the attention of a mask. So we're asking that anyone, now if parents don't want their child to come back to school at this point, they can still elect to do our distance learning program. We just want to know in advance. And we ask that if they're in that program, they stay in it for the length of the quarter, at least the quarter. Or they trade. Now, if they're coming to school and they decide it's too risky, too many cases out there, we want to go to distance learning, they could do that at any time. But to switch back, we want some preparation, because the trick with this is staffing it and making sure it's quality.
So evidently, the county has met the needs so that we are insured. Because I know last meeting, that was a big holdup, that we weren't under 7% of cases tested.
That's right. For what that's worth, people that are getting tested once, it's my understanding they don't want to be tested again. That's not a fun test to take. So under 7% of the people being tested are currently, positive. So that's one of the metrics. We're insured either way. So our insurance is taken care of with that on a case-by-case basis, and there's some other details with that, but we are insured.
Well, that wasn't what was said at the last meeting.
That we had to, in order to qualify for the insurance, that metric had to be met.
Right. So
Well,
did that
regardless, we
change?
are. Well, we're meeting it either way.
And the
So.
county has verified that to you? Have
Yeah.
they put it in writing? Because I want it on them, I don't want it on you,
Right.
this school district.
I have not checked their dashboard today, but 2 weeks ago, they were there, and they expected that trend to continue because fewer tests, quite frankly,
I would ask that you take a picture of it, you know, print screen, something
Yeah.
to cover our school district.
It's online. They post it every week online.
Yeah.
But is it, I mean, he's going by 2 weeks ago. Is that still there?
Yeah, they post it every week and they tell you what it's been for the past however many weeks.
We can probably pull it up here and verify it right now. But yeah, all 3 metrics are being met, and several other districts in the state are opening. So
There's several other districts that have opened without their county meeting the metrics anyway, correct?
apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion?
So just make it clear, we're asking if they wear masks if they're not social distance possible, but if they're in their classroom and they're social distancing, they don't
Face
have to wear a
coverings.
mask. Face covering, whatever, same diff.
Well, I think we do need to
Right.
make it that we're accepting those also.
Yep.
Yeah, if I could, so more of our attention is going to be placed on things that I think are viable for keeping the virus out, of our kids and our staff. Things like spacing, keeping distance, good hygiene practices, hand sanitizer. We're getting more hand sanitizer and also bracelets that have it for employees, so it's easy access for them. Air ventilation, outside. Those are things that we think are viable solutions to preventing the virus. Staying home when you're sick. You guys were having that discussion when I arrived. Absolutely, that's very important. And we're doing health screenings every day.
And I still see on the bottom of this that if a family has health concerns about their child wearing a mask, they can opt out, sign a form saying their child doesn't have to wear a mask, correct?
Yeah, they have health concerns, with the exception of the bus. Now, on a bus, we can talk about that and we can amend the motion if you want to direct our policy to be, specific one way or the other. So please do that. But if you approve it as it is, our plan, or my plan, is to proceed with requiring masks on buses, regardless of an opt-out form or anything like that. Something else that might make some parents feel better or the governing board feel better, if you remember those annual audits that we get about square footage per student, we have one of the highest ratios. So we have a lot of space that we feel we can utilize to spread our students out, and that's a benefit that we're going to take advantage of.
They were saying that we're gonna be looking at either the bus driver or an extra adult taking the kid's temperature. I assume the kind that go across the forehead, never
Right.
touch them.
That's right.
Before they get on the bus, what about the kids coming without the bus? Do they have to go through the office and be scanned as well?
Yeah.
What
That's
about the
happening.
employees?
We're already doing that with employees, and that will continue.
Our employees come to the office every day to get screened, and they plan on screening all of our students before they enter the building.
What about the janitorial things with the bathrooms? Is that gonna be, are they gonna be focusing on those more often?
Yes, absolutely. High traffic areas. We're going to also increase our signage,
Washing
encouraging good
your
hygiene,
hands.
and social distancing, not handshaking or those type of things. But also the high traffic areas we're hitting more. Mr. Hutchins has a plan in place for the playground equipment. Mr. Miller likewise with the athletic equipment and all that, and the bathrooms, of course.
So with the playground equipment, do we have somebody that'll go around like with a 1 gallon or 5 gallon sprayer on their back and disinfect the playground daily, or what?
Just clean it daily. Probably not with a backpack sprayer, but some.
Wiping it down.
Wiping down the high traffic areas.
We have some fogging equipment. We're going to see how that works, but we're going to try that as soon as it arrives.
I didn't bring it with me, but I looked at the CDC guidelines, and their guidelines were that equipment like that, if you're cleaning it, daily, you're you'll be okay. You don't need to be cleaning it like you're cleaning your hand, washing, and other things. And so I believe it'll be okay with what we're doing, cleaning that each day.
The sun does a number on the virus from what we understand, and hand sanitizer, alcohol, that can kill the virus. It doesn't do well outside. So, and we do weekly inspections on the equipment outside, so it's going to be part of that, making sure that it's wiped down. But we're going to try and wipe it down more. Was the plan? More often.
Have we considered maybe having the buses run a little bit earlier so the kids can be there a little bit sooner to get in? Is that I don't know whether that's something we need to do.
Get in
So that they can get in and be in
Have you
class
thought how much
in
time it's going to take to do each kid's temperature? So are you
the bus,
getting them there
I know-
sooner to take their
I know
temperatures?
Mr. Diaz has adjusted his bus routes, what he's told me, to accommodate for having to check their temperatures.
Okay.
But he hasn't adjusted his, for us, we're just gonna have to absorb that into our day. We just know with the staff, it's just gonna take longer to get in the building.
Yeah, well, we're not going to mark them out as target.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really take that long anyway.
No,
I have to get checked when I go to work. It's that long.
So it's just gonna take a little bit longer.
You can run a lot of kids through in a big hurry.
Okay.
Yeah, and we are adding a bus run to try and space students out. So he is working on that to start next Tuesday, an additional bus run. So they're not, so we can go like one student per row instead of, doubling up or tripling up.
Is there any comments that the people of the community want to discuss?
Is there a written policy or anywhere for a person, a student test policy, whether it's false or not? If they test positive, they automatically have to go into the distancing program and not be allowed back in the school for 14 days, I believe is the standard now. And the retesting, is at the expense of the parents, not the school?
Good questions. I don't believe that's in our policy, but that is, that could definitely be our procedure. That's what we're planning on.
That's gonna be hard to do.
Quite frankly, yeah. So the
They're
reality
not- they
of
won't
it is
test 'em.
people,
They won't test
we
'em.
can't force people to get tested. So that, okay, but if they're sick, we can keep them away. So that, there's a fine line there to address part of your question. So
If the school medical personnel, the nurse that we have, finds that they meet all of the established criteria of needing testing, can she tell that person they need to go away from the students?
yeah.
Would that be a part of the policy?
Yeah, so if they have a temperature, yeah, we're asking for complete cooperation from the parents that we don't want them in class.
And that's pretty much no different than what we do now. I mean, when we have a student that's growing up or has a fever, we send them home.
But we're going to have isolated area and strict protocol. If you have two confirmed cases in any school, it's considered an outbreak, and it is a mandatory report that we need to make now. That rule did come out. We talked about it at the last meeting. It doesn't
We'll have to
necessarily.
shut down again?
They said not necessarily. They will decide that they could with an outbreak, and an outbreak is two confirmed cases.
And who decides that?
Evidently, the county or the county in coordination with the school district is my understanding.
Okay, and just to clarify, I know people who were tested positive and they are not getting tested again. It's almost impossible to get a test, is my point. So you cannot tell people they can't come back to school without a test saying that, because they can't get it.
That's a good point. And we're set up to have in place a 14-day quarantine. I think that is reasonable, and we can request that from any symptom.
Calendar day.
Yeah, and they can do the distance. So we're the distance program during that time. So regardless of the test or not, we feel like we can accommodate that situation.
Go ahead. There's a microphone right there.
Okay, I can talk loud enough. You only allow so many days for children to be sick. So if they have sniffles or things like that, and they don't have coronavirus, but they have to not go to school. How are we fixing that? Or what are
Sure. The principals want to take
Yes.
that, or you want me to?
Yeah, I won't, sorry, I'm just gonna talk this way so they can hear me. Basically, I believe, speaking for Mr. Miller and myself, we'll be accommodating on that. It's no different than other years when we've had students have to miss 2 or 3 weeks with something to do with tonsillitis or then the death in the family. And I think we'll be more than accommodating with those that have to do that under the certain
Well, if they're doing the
circumstances.
distance learning, won't they be able to be?
They're technically
considered-
not absent anyway, so
Exactly.
yes.
That's a little tricky though, because we'll get into the technical side of it. When you're in the distance learning program, you actually have to be switched in the grade book so that you're not actually considered on campus, and it's kind of tricky to go from in person to distance and back and forth like that. So I don't know. We'll have to decide how we're going to handle
I think
that.
we can make it work.
But I mean, we've always been
Well,
patient when
hopefully
there's.
we don't hit that too, and I'm sure we can work it out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
we
we'll
can
get
work
it
it
taken care of. But I don't know if. Kind of depends on what we decide, whether if they're in person, if we want to let them go district or go distance back and forth, that gets a little tricky.
Well, and I think you need to
But-
consider both sides of it. You got kids that will insist on coming to school so they can get that reward at the end of the year. I had 100% attendance. Well, maybe you need to get rid of that as well as be more
And
lenient on we missing school.
And I'm talking, just so I'm clear, I'm talking in our computer system how we take attendance. I'm not talking about actually doing the classwork and stuff like that. But yeah, I think perfect attendance might be out the window forever now for most schools. So.
Out the window this year.
Yeah, it's in policy. No attendance awards this year, or law. It's been one of the two.
So we'll be getting a clearer picture. Most of my, at least at elementary school, most of my grades now have someone that's choosing to be in the distance learning. So we'll continue with the Google Classroom. So if someone has to go home with the sniffles per se and be gone for 2 or 3 days, it's already there. I'll say, hey, Mrs. Sander, we've got this student that's going to be distant learning for the rest of this week because mom said they're sick and they're going to be staying home, and it should be hopefully just a smooth transition for those few days to be home that they need to be home, whether it's 3 or 10 or whatever, and then we'll get them back in there.
So to recap for a parent that has this question, students get more sick days this year without getting notifications home from the school about attendance requirements. But in return, the only thing we're asking is communication. So is it, a doctor's appointment, or is it, a symptom of COVID-19? Because we want to try and distinguish that and accommodate the kid, get them in the right system, what grade book they need to be in.
Well, even if they're sick with something else, there's no reason to not take advantage of what we have set up. And keep the kids, unless they're running a high fever and just so sick they can't do the work. I see it as a plus, what we've gone through for the students as well as the teachers. I mean, they're learning that they can do things from home. And because we have this under our belt now, I think we need to utilize it to its fullest.
But good luck keeping them from abusing it.
From what?
From abusing the system. I'd have loved that in school.
Luckily, we typically don't have many problems with that.
There's still going to be some accountability. So they're enrolled. It doesn't preclude them from, if you're sick, it doesn't preclude you from having to turn in your assignments or taking a test. It might extend the time that you get to do it, but the accountability is still there, right? So that should help a little bit.
But that's all done on an individual basis according to what the principals do probably.
Go ahead.
Entry into state and federal buildings has been established at 100.2. Is that the same criteria? Have you documented that and sent it out to parents?
Yes, ours is it 100.4? Yeah, we got 100.4. So I don't know if the 200s make a big difference, but yeah. That's, for parents, yes, that has been sent out. It's on the letter that we communicated home, so.
Go ahead.
If your child is sent home sick with one of the symptoms, what is the criteria for them to come back? Because a lot of the symptoms can just be any of the beat. And as she said before, it's actually difficult with different clinics to get the COVID test. They also, some of them just assume that you do have it if you were with someone, so they won't even get you at that point. But are all the children, if you have a family and one child is sick and sent home, how do they come back? And also, are all the children in the family required now to stay at home?
Yeah. So 2 parts. No, we're not going to police that. So if one child might have some symptoms that could possibly be COVID, it doesn't mean we're not taking any other kids from that family. At least at this point, that's what we discussed. Because not everyone in the same household necessarily gets it either, from what we've heard and seen. So, and the other question was, what was the first part? Oh, CDC. So yeah, we're following the CDC guidelines to the extent that we can. So like depending on the symptom. So they have different flow charts here. So if they're asymptomatic, but they had the sniffles one day, that's going to be treated differently than if they had a fever. The most frequent symptom right now for COVID-19, from everything we've heard, or I've heard at least, is that the loss of taste and smell. That's a symptom that I think we really need to treat seriously. And if that's the case, maybe you do have that 10 or 14-day quarantine period, or isolation period. So that might be one that we do. But we're planning on following the CDC guidelines, and they have a flow chart there.
So just if a child comes to school and they develop a fever during the day, and so we send them home saying, hey, you've got a fever. We're not saying that the parent has to go get them tested just because they have one symptom, correct? But we will say they can't come back to school until they don't have a fever anymore and they don't have any symptoms.
And have
Is that
not
correct?
acquired any of the other symptoms.
Right?
That needs to be stipulated.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
I just make sure the principals and I are on the same page. If they have something to say, please speak up.
I mean,
But we're not forcing tests. We're
Right.
not-
There's no way we can force somebody to go take a test. So.
And there's false positives. There's a lot of issues out there, and I don't know if we can address all those, but we can treat symptomatic children or students seriously, and that's what we'd like to do, as seriously as we can.
Okay.
With the CDC guidelines.
I haven't had to be tested. I haven't had to be tested or anything, but I'm pretty sure that the little Colorado Medical Center still does free testing. So if it's
Yes,
mandatory or
they-
whatever, you can still get it.
They do.
But it's like once a week.
By equipment is what it's going on.
Oh, it doesn't. Last I heard, it was like only on Wednesdays.
I got asked a question. Let me read it. If kids wind up playing with their masks and not wearing them, if they don't have a waiver, how do we police the situation, and how long until it becomes a moot point?
Yeah, I don't know the situation exactly here, but so let's say that I can give a scenario, and if it fits that, we'll talk that way. So a first grade class, they might come in and there's enough space in there. The teacher says, remove, okay, let's take our masks off now, and then the learning can start, right? So there shouldn't be any, we don't want it to be a distraction. We don't want it to be discomfort to kids, because quite frankly, it's probably not worth it. I don't know, once a mask is contaminated, it can't successfully do the job that it's being promoted to do. So the contaminated mask, that's a tough one. That's why our focus are on those other things. That
So are we asking the parents to send a Ziploc or something for when the kids take it off, they put it in the Ziploc?
Quite possibly, yeah.
That could be.
you know, I
That could
mean,
be a parental thing that they want to do. That could help the situation.
well, if we're gonna insist they wear a mask, we should have some sort of guidelines so that they aren't contaminated. Because according to everything I've heard, once you touch it or you take it off, you've got to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think that might get to the crux of the question. Practically impossible to keep a busload of students from touching their masks.
Yeah, I
as they're
want the bus
trading.
driver watching the road. I don't want to.
Yeah, so we can't, but we can ask them to have a mask when they get on, so.
I think, honestly, the bottom line is we can do the best we can do, and parents do the best they can do, and that's all we can do. Any other?
Well, it says here that personal health concerns, a personal health concern, they can opt out. Is there any criteria for that, or is it at the parent's discretion? Do I even want to say that? We don't, because you really can't say anything because of HIPAA laws on why did they do it. Is there?
I don't, the plan, obviously we can't go research everybody's personal health history, so that's a
Okay.
decision,
Yeah,
I guess, that the parent has to make.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote that, so that's right on the parent. Just like for our immunization, and somebody can say it's I don't go investigating what their religious reasons are. We take them at their word, so that's what it is. But we would like people to work with us to, years from now, who knows, masks might be a lot more common. So like on buses or, some situations, we would like students to try and comply with our reasonable requests to wear masks. But we're really not going to force them in instructional settings when this social distance.
Did you have a question?
My name is Mr. Nels, Jonathan Nels. I'm staff teacher here. Also parent. I have a second grader, a fourth grader, and a ninth grader. And it sounds like there's a lot of gray areas that we're still not sure of. And that concerns me as a parent. And I appreciate all of the staff, I appreciate superintendent, and the leaders, trying to do the best that they can. But to me, as a parent, I'm speaking as a parent. It sounds like there's a lot of gray areas. A lot of things that we're not sure of, a lot of things that we're not put into writing yet, things that were guidelined as far as if this happens, that this is what's going to happen. If that happens, this is what's going to happen. As a parent, if all those are laid out, that makes us feel better. That makes us feel safer. I appreciate, this is what we have here. There's a lot of, even right now, one of you could have it right now. And there's no mask being worn. And it's like in the air for about 2 to 3 hours. That's a long time. I don't know if you've done that research. Has this been cleaned? And see, even with that, everything we touch. And you're right with the children. I've been watching the kids, do their online schooling in the computer lab. They're touching their mask. They're fiddling with their mask. They're rubbing their nose. They're rubbing their eyes. And they're right back on their mouse. They're right back on their keyboards. And I have to tell them, as soon as I say, okay, don't touch anything. We'll sanitize. Then you can come back. And so it's not going to go away, guys. It's a pandemic. We need to remember it. It's a pandemic. And we need to realize it. And I know there's a lot of personal feelings coming into these discussions, personal. But I'm looking to you as a school board to represent our community, represent my students, my children, the families. So thank you. That's all. I'm just kind of concerned with all the little gray areas that we're not sure of. That's what I wanted to just share.
For First of all, I think that we have to remember that the children who have had problems with this disease, this pandemic, had underlying health issues. Am I correct? That's everything I have heard and seen. That has been the case. You and every other parent has a responsibility to that child. If they have these underlying problems, have them stay home and learn on the laptops or Chromebooks just like they've been doing. We're not asking you to send them to school. I totally get what you're saying and I appreciate it. But we can't know everything because nobody knows it. All these experts, the CDC and all the rest of them, they change their mind every hour. So we can't very well have everything in black and white when the experts can't give it to us in black and white. All we can do is the best we can with what we're given.
I just have a question. To me, it seems like you guys have laid out the guidelines as best as you can. And to me, as a parent, there's not gray areas.
Because the whole pandemic per se is a gray area. There's, like Rhonda's saying, there's not a right or wrong, yes or no. It's just not going to happen, and they're trying to get guidelines from other government agencies and other things. And so, to me, they're taking the temperatures, they're asking, and the masks. I mean, to me, it's disgusting. I just imagine a bunch of kindergartners full of snot and boogers, but it is what it is. You can't get away from that. Every kid is gonna do everything differently, but I don't know. The gray areas that you're concerned about, I think they've lined out everything that they can, given the information from the CDC and everything that they can. But I don't know.
Thanks. Thank you.
Tomorrow, we're planning on having a virtual parent meeting online where we will try and answer questions and concerns that you may have and just go over our plans for opening. So we wanted to make sure this meeting happened first. So the principals and I are planning on it.
And I believe that the parents have that ability to go. They can do the online learning, or they can go. It's ultimately, I don't get in trouble. God gave everybody the brains to figure it out. Sit down with your family, figure it out, and let's go with it. If you're going to stay home or go to school.
I want to add, there's also risk. I mean, there's risk in everything you do in life. And right now, I think for a lot of kids, the risk is higher of not being educated because they're staying at home versus getting to school and being able to get educated and get that education that they need. And that's part of our job as a school board, is to think what's best for the kids. And I think the majority of the kids do better in a school setting where they have teachers that are teaching them and they can interact back and forth with teachers. And that's part of our job, is to make sure the kids in our community get the education that they need. And I think to do that, they need to be able to go back to school. But I also like the ability that we're giving, that if parents still feel that their kids should not come to school for some reason, we're fine with that. So then go ahead and do the online. We're set up that way. I think it's great that we can do that in this time and age with technology, to do it that way.
And they can come, and if something happens, they can
Go home.
go back because it didn't work for them.
Right.
Well, I see taking the temperatures is going to alleviate a lot of cross contamination of other things. You know, by the time a cold goes through a whole classroom, the one that started it gets it again. You know, I've seen it. We've all seen it. You see it at your house. Kid comes home with a cold, it goes through all the kids, usually the parents. If we're taking temperatures, there's going to be less of everything. It's going to help a lot, in my opinion.
As they say, school is a petri dish. You get everything that's there. I know as a teacher, it didn't matter what was going around the community, I was getting it. And so as far as talking for teachers, if I was a teacher, I would be willing to come back to school and teach, especially with the temperatures being taken. I think it's going to actually make the teachers be less sick, having kids have temperatures taken before they come to school. So I think that's a good thing.
One of the areas I haven't heard mentioned is, do we have any children in the special education classes who would be high risk? That their immune system might make them high risk?
We do
what
have-
kind of,
So how would
I don't
we
know
work
what
with
kind
that?
of,
We have, I have one that I think I'm aware of at the elementary school, and so that parent is choosing to continue with distance learning, and we're working to help them as the best that we can. The best setting, the way our schools are set up, is in person. That's the best setting, but we'll do the best that we can to continue to help them virtually, and the parents making that choice because they know that they have some underlying health risk, and so they're choosing to do that.
so like
I can't speak-
diabetic
No,
child or
it's
something?
it's a different health issue, but I can't speak to all of them because I don't know all the kids.
And besides that, we as the school district can't divulge that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
so we're working to help any of those
Parental.
students that have whether they're special education or not, if they have an underlying issue, we're working to help them. No different if the pandemic had never happened and they were still having those issues.
Parental decision, like, you know.
Go ahead.
Have we discussed the phasing in? Have the board discussed phasing into an in-person? Seems like we're just.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Phasing.
Nels, I can't hear you.
Like phasing in, I think. Phasing
Yes,
in.
he asked if we are looking at phasing in. He's saying it looks like we're just jumping in. Did I say that?
I don't know what he means.
Like some of the students starting, half come a couple days, or we come a couple days a week instead of us all starting at once. That's what he's asking, I think.
We have, as the principals and I have.
And that's been brought
I
up in
don't-
our school
yeah.
board meetings as well.
Probably. Actually, Mr. Miller, I've heard him address it before, and he's not to put you on the spot, but
You put me on the spot.
go for it then.
Yeah, it's been discussed, actually quite a bit. Sorry, I'm trying not to, got talking to the microphone and I don't want to look weird and look out of the corner of my eye. It has been discussed. There's some challenges with that. Some of the challenges, I guess, is scheduling wise. I think Holbrook, I don't know if they're still doing that. They were going to, and they were going to have like everybody whose last name started A to D would come in on Mondays, and then the next group on Tuesdays, and it poses some big challenges for teachers in general. And it just makes the strain too great, and so
What's the advantage, though?
Spacing them out
you can
more.
space them out a little easier. Luckily, like Mr. Field said, we're in a situation where we are able to space them out a little bit more than most schools. And so we decided that instead of going through the challenge of spacing or of spreading out, days that kids come, we decided to open. We thought it would be best to open up and let parents choose if they wanted to stay distance
that's-
learning or come.
That's something that's a real advantage with our school district is we have the room and to be able to do the spacing. Most of the time when it's talked about phasing in, it's the larger school districts that already have large classes and they just can't get social distancing. So they're phasing them in that way to keep the social distancing. Luckily with our school, we don't really have that problem. We have the space.
Mr. Nels, what is your thoughts? I mean, are you feeling like we should be doing it, and why? But talk loud, please.
I'm gonna try to talk as loud as I can. I don't want to sound like I'm yelling at you
You need
guys.
to yell so I can hear you.
Just come up there. Well, I'm just speaking for parents. Okay, just
I realize that.
don't get me wrong, and don't. Hopefully, I see a lot of snickering, a lot of shaking heads from the school board. So, please, I since my kids have been coming here, I love what I see. I appreciate the love that my kids get and the education that they're getting. That's why I'm sending my kids here. That's why we agreed to send our kids here. I appreciate the leadership, the principal, and the superintendent, and I'm looking to you as a school board. And so it's just, for us as parents, it seems like it's just, for me, I'm just saying, maybe it's different for you, rushing into it. I know there's the area schools that are not ready to go into it yet, because they're based it on the numbers of our area, or this county. And I was able to listen into the last previous board meeting, and you guys heard it from yourselves, from the Department of Health. They're saying those numbers reflect actually each community. So it's still high. And even though we had those numbers, we're still pushing forward. I just don't want us to make the same mistake as other counties, other schools, and rush into it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I
And then
realize
as
that
far
you're
as
asking.
phasing into it, I've seen that's been, that seems like that's been the best approach so far, even with this pandemic. Our own governor did not go with the phasing in. He just said, okay, everyone's free to do whatever they want to do. What happened with our state? We're one of the highest numbers in the country. And so I'm just thinking, as for the safety wise, as far as spreading out, even as far as that concerns me about, when you say that we're going to allow the teachers to have the ability to say, okay, take off your mask. We're going to start teaching. For me, I think that's just going to be a go to each teacher say, oh, they're not required to wear their mask. And then are we going to make them put on their mask when they go to the hallways, or is that just going to say something we say here, but it's just like, okay, for the first few days it'll happen, but, is it going to be
Well,
something?
let me ask you this. Have you kept your kids at home this whole time?
Yes, I have.
I beg to differ. I saw your children in Flagstaff a week ago Saturday at the mall,
Yep, with their mask.
but they were out in public.
Uh-huh.
Then that's my point. You have taught your kids to wear their mask
Yeah.
to protect themselves, but you haven't kept them home all the time that this has been going on. Even though we haven't been having classroom in person, your children have been out and amongst people. We all have, I hope.
What are you saying?
All I'm saying is they're already been out around people, and we're doing the best we can with the classroom situation.
This is every day, man. This is every day. I'm sending my kids.
But you also have the
I'm putting
option
them
to
into
not.
your care, into the school district's care. And it sounds like what you're saying too as a school board is, we're going to do it our way. You don't want it? We're still going to do it. Keep them home. That's what it sounds like.
Well, what
Rather
would
than-
you as a parent
rather
and
than
a
come-
teacher suggest?
Rather than come alongside us parents that were concerned and say, this is what steps we're taking. I appreciate it. So that's what it sounds like as a parent. So that's all I had to say. I mean, these are my concerns. Thank you for letting me voice them. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your concerns. I would say that I have heard from multiple parents and teachers, and I would say the majority want to come back to school. So we're trying to figure out a way that we can get them back to school, okay?
That's my students included. They want to come back.
Right,
They
so
wanna-
that's what we're saying. We're working to come back to school.
Yeah.
But we're also, so I'm a big proponent of, we have a lot of good freedoms in this country. And so my personal opinion is, as a parent, because I have kids that come to this school too, if I feel like it's too dangerous for them to come to school, I can keep them home. But also, as a parent, I'm going, man, if I want to get my kids in school and get them back there with that interaction with the teacher, I can do that now. So I have the freedom to do it either way. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to say, well, this is the way we're going to do it, but if you don't like it, keep them home. That's not what we're saying. We're saying be wise with your own family, with your own children. Do what you feel is best with your children. We, as a school district and a school board, when we vote here, we'll find out what we're going to do, but we feel like we can get the kids back in the school doing it this way. And that's what we're trying to decide if we can do that, but we're still allowing parents the freedom to decide how they would like to get their kids educated. Do they want to send them to school, or do they want to keep them home? Type of thing. So I think we're trying to work best that we can for the whole community, to give them the freedom to decide how they want to educate their kids and what they want to do with their kids to keep them safe. That's what I feel like we're
And
doing.
I wasn't trying to be ugly to you. I can't hear. You know that. You've been around me. And so I speak louder than most people, which Mr. Winter appreciates because he can hear me. But you, as a parent and a teacher, I'm serious. What do you suggest? Because you can see it from both sides. Do you have any ideas to help us?
Well, my recommendation was to phase in. As much as we can to keep the numbers low, phase into it, and even maybe even possibly a later start date.
And please expound on that, because I know we've got a lot more space in our classrooms and less students than a lot of schools.
Yep.
So that's why, I understand what they're saying, how hard it would be A through G or whatever. But I could see we're doing it by classroom. This class will be on this day, this class will be on that day, like that. I can see where it could be done. But still, we're a small school district. So I need you to convince me why it would work, why it would help. Do you see what I'm asking you to give me input.
Well, the only input I have for you is just as much as we can to squeeze out the students. And even, are they going to be released from classes all at the same time and congregate in the halls? Are they going to be released at separate times? Is the freshman class, I'm talking about the high school now, freshman class, do they go? And then once they get to where they need to go, just stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't have all
Well,
the
even
answers.
at the elementary,
Even
I've
at-
seen
even
the
as far
hallway
as-
pretty crowded there at times. That's a
Are we
good
gonna-
question.
Is there?
We're staggering when we go to lunch. I've changed the lunch times where we have different students going to lunch. We have the classes separated. We're going to be working to, when we come into the building from our recesses and stuff, having a grade come in and the rest hold outside. It's a whole new learning curve, so it's not going to be perfect at the beginning, but that is our plan.
And what
To
about
not
the
have them
junior
just
high, high
come
school,
in there.
Miller?
We're going to be requiring masks in the hallway.
And did you hear that, Mr. Nels?
We as well. That's my plan.
Is that something you feel comfortable with as a parent?
Yeah, and then, well, the only part that concerns me is this telling the kids, okay, take off your mask and let's go. That's the only part that concerns me. And then also seeing a lot of the adults without mask, even, that concerns me.
Well, let me see.
I-
I think me and Mr. Winter are the oldest ones here.
That's age discrimination.
Huh? Are you worried, Mr. Winter? I got my mask.
Well, and
I don't feel a need to wear it.
what is the social distancing requirement?
Exactly.
6 feet.
Look how far apart we are.
You're not required to wear a mask if you have social distancing.
And I think, Jonathan, also the way maybe the wording on that, I will instruct my teachers in the morning to not direct the students to take their mask off, because you may have a parent that says, I want you wearing your mask all day long. And that's fine. Once again, we have freedom. I will encourage my teachers to say, boys and girls, we're social distancing. If your parents have said you can take your mask off and social distancing, you can take it off now if you want to. Now, if that thing gets full of boogers in kindergarten, we're popping it off. Okay, we're going to have to take it off, But that's what I'm going to ask my staff to do. Once again, I don't think it's my right as the principal to walk into Mr. Mosier's class and say, hey, you guys, what are you doing? Get those things off. You know, once again, if I've told my kid to keep it on, then I'm going to expect them to have the right to keep it on.
I think that's what the whole point of this is in their if they can have social distancing and the parent is okay with them taking their mask off, they can take their mask off. But if they've been instructed from their parent at home to keep their mask on, then they're going to be allowed to keep their mask on. But the only issue I see with that is we are also not a policing. We don't know. Right. I mean, I guess you could send a note home to the parent that says, hey, my kid is not allowed to take their mask off.
What we're doing our best to do is those things that Mr. Fields stated earlier. We're going to do our best to social distance. We're going to do our best at elementary school to have the students have their mask on when they're in the hallways. We're working to not have the students be congregated in the hallways, to have staggering entry times, staggered lunch times, lunch in different venues, working to keep our spacing when we're outside. We're going to do the best that we can, and I see us working to do as many measures as we can. And heaven help us, we may still have a case or two. It may be me. I don't know. But I really believe one aspect that, at least in my home, is the social emotional state of my students, my own children. To me, as a parent in this district, it's worth the risk of my student getting sick because they're losing it. And then I've had parents on the phone crying. I've had parents on the phone pleading, Mr. Hutchins, help me, you got to do something. And so I'm not saying we're rolling the dice here, but I'm going to roll my dice when I go get in my big van and drive home in a minute. And I could die. I could get hit. You know, it is what it is. And so I think we're, at least elementary school, I'm putting all these things into place, and I will do the best I can, once again, even if there wasn't a pandemic, to keep all my kids safe, including myself.
And I would wish that everybody would remember when this first started last school year, and then even the first of this school year, how much everything has come along. I am so proud of our employees and what they have accomplished and how far the students they've come. I think everybody's worked together, and I feel like it'll be the same thing coming back into class. I think everybody will work together and try to improve no matter when they come back to class. You know, at first it may be problematic, but then it'll get worked out.
I think we're going to give and I really think we'll see a lot of our students step up and really try to help and do. I know that I've seen it on online classes, students stepping up to help the teacher and other students and giving help to their friends or whatever. Did you have something?
I was just, Mr. Hutchins kind of said it already, but I think at this point as a parent, I'm more worried about my children taking their own lives than I am them losing their lives to a virus. That doesn't even really affect children at all.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment? Because I know once we vote, everybody's going to shut off their computers.
Make your comment.
I just like to remind everybody that this is a educational location, not a healthcare location. We're here to educate the children. They can't spend their whole time worried about every incident that may or may not happen. They're worried about educating. And I have to hand my hats off to the teachers. They've done a phenomenal job. I don't know how they haven't. If I had to do stuff on the computer all day, I'd go flip burgers. So, I mean, and all the way to the custodial staff, all the way through, they've done a phenomenal job. I mean, they're educators, they're not childcare. They're not to be feeding the kids, they're to be educating the kids. I am proud of our teachers, and let's vote.
There was 2 comments. Go ahead.
Just one question, is there an impact on the 100-day count, on the seat time counts by going back? Can you do a combination of the in-house and remote learning?
Yes.
So we're good on finances. I think that's a major consideration there.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, I think, I personally would like to see my children go back to school, and I think as a parent, one of the reasons why I would like them to is because I don't think that the quality of education that they're getting is very good. I know that the teachers are trying the best they can, the principals, and I appreciate all that. It's a mess, I think, for everyone. You know, we're all trying to do this, and we can all like help each other, and I think we should all listen to each other. And we've had teachers, if we've had something that's not working, have listened and tried harder, but they're not getting a good education, in my opinion. I came tonight to find out if they're going back, because if not, then I'm looking for my children a different solution, because this isn't working. They're not getting a good education, in my opinion. But I also agree with Mr. Nels. I do think that some of the things, we want to minimize the risk for our children, because it actually does take children. I mean, even just being obese, and that obesity affects a lot of our children, is a high risk. I myself am a high risk. I don't wear a mask all the time for medical reasons, you know? And so I don't think it's fair to judge everyone in this room that's not wearing a mask, because you don't know my medical history, and I don't need to know yours. But at the same time, I also agree with Mr. Nels that some of the things aren't really good, because if we're trying to keep our kids in school, we need to make sure we are, to the best of our ability, minimizing it. No, we can't, you know, parent them, as you say, the entire time as you're a teacher. I can't imagine having a class of 30-something first graders and trying to make them wear their masks. But he's right that we don't quite, maybe, it's a little perhaps relaxed to make sure that it doesn't spread. I think the CDC says, and I know the doctors say, if you have a child that's sick that probably has it, you don't get tested for a while. It might take a while for them to get tested, but yet we're sending their siblings to school, then of course we're spreading it, really. So I think we should go back to school, and I want that for my children. But I do think that there are some gray areas that maybe in the parent virtual thing, we can list our concerns, and perhaps there can be better regulations, I guess, that we can make sure that the teachers are implementing.
Thank you. I think we're ready to vote. Andrew?
Yeah.
Dayton?
Yes.
Eldon?
Let's go back to school.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Myself, yes. I think that we do need to look at the concerns of the parents, if there are, during that meeting, and maybe find ways to address those. I motion that we close the meeting, the time being 7:16.
Thank you.
Somebody want to?
I'll second it.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah.
Dayton?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Rhonda?
Yes.
Eldon?
Yes.